I must tell you that one of the reasons why I've taken such an interest in politics just recently, it's always been somewhat of a hobby of mine, but recently I've recognized that in this country, and I am first generation here, my dad came from Sicily, and he worked 2 jobs his whole life, and I recognized early that hard work is what makes success in America. So I've worked very hard, but more than anything, I've had opportunities. These opportunities were given to me because I was here in the United States. Because if I had hard work elsewhere, if I had one component without the other, chances are I wouldn't have been even remotely successful. So I'm grateful, and now I wish to participate to pass it forward, because this is important. Opportunity is why many people come to the United States, and many of the immigrants that came here built this nation. And I'm grateful to have been here, to have opportunity placed in front of me, and then hard work. Mixing that together, that equals success. And it's still out there, it's still available, but it needs to be more readily available. While I'm out now, the last few weeks, I'm listening. And I think that one of the most important things a representative can do is listen to the people, listen to his constituency, hear what they have to say. One of the things I'd like to do is encourage people to vote, because it's not only your right, but it's a duty. If our government has no harmony, then therefore we have no product. And you, the voters, the citizens, are the stockholders in the government. And this is why I'm asking you to vote, because you're going to give either your vote of approval or disapproval. It's your country, it's your government. And if you send a representative to Washington, that's your worker. I think we need to insert the word public service more and career politician less. So the real hero in all of this, to me, is the working person. In 1935, though, we made a promise to people that once you got old enough to retire, and that retirement age was at 65, and you weren't able to work like a young person, that when you're 40, obviously you're still doing pretty well. I'm 60, and let me tell you something, it's a little tough. I'm still working, but it's not as easy as it was when I was 50. Well, we made a promise to you, and that promise was that if you worked and we put money aside for you, that money would be there for you for all of those years, those golden years from 65 on. Now, we've done almost the opposite, where we practically bankrupted the Social Security system. And there's a fear that there won't be any money there for people like myself, who in a few years would like to be able to retire. So we're in a difficult spot, yes. And one of the things we need to do is get people back to work. The more people that are working, they're contributing. And as they contribute, we reinforce the Social Security system. I hold corporations to a higher level of responsibility, especially a corporation that abandons the borders of our nation and abandons our workers. We're not going to abandon our nation, because the American workers are absolutely incredibly talented. We build anything. We've built cars, and we've built buildings, etc. Name it, we can put it together. Computers, rockets that go to the moon, American ingenuity. We're talented people, and corporations need to recognize that we have the biggest buying and purchasing power in the world. And it's one thing to build something outside the nation and say, well, we're going to bring it to America, and we're going to make sure it's better for America. And we love that we're going to have a global economy in some sense. But don't abandon our nation. Don't abandon our workers. because we have to be equal players. So we need to pick up jobs, and that is by bringing manufacturing back. Somebody said to me last week, "Do you realize that we build BMWs in Virginia and ship them overseas?" And I said, great. So we can build a German car in the United States, in Virginia, and send it to Europe. If we can do that, we can do anything. Products that are made overseas, you've heard of them. A lot of them come from China, but not necessarily just from China. The toys that had lead paint on them, and our children are being poisoned, that they didn't know, the moms and the dads didn't know they were buying poison toys because the Chinese don't have a standard to be held to as the American corporations and manufacturers do. The Chinese also made sheetrock. Well, all of a sudden we've had in Florida and a few southern states where they used all the sheetrock, mold and odors being emitted, and evidently poisons were used, and those homes were condemned. Well, that's not going to be a good thing for us, and we're not going to allow that to continue. I even remember when Venetian blinds, they had these plastic PVC blinds that as the sun hit them, the vinyl deteriorated, and they were made with lead, and they were poisoning the children in the home. So imported products, we're going to have to hold them to the same standards that the American manufacturers have. A standard that protects and keeps the people of this nation safe. Because that's the job of the government, to make sure that foreign products are not going to hurt us and poison us. And that they're held to the same standards that the American manufacturers are held to. No less, no more. Equal and fair. You can't argue with fair. Student loans. If I don't mention this, my daughter Carly is going to be angry at me. She just graduated from the Massachusetts School of Pharmacy and Medicine and did a wonderful job. She has her degree and no job. I say that with a little bit of a chuckle in my voice because she was angry. She says, "Daddy, we spent over $150,000 to get me educated. I would have been better off going to work." And I responded by telling her, I said, "Carly, education may be expensive, but ignorance is far more expensive. Therefore, we need to invest in education. We need to help these youngsters get educated, give them reasonable loans and grants, and help their families afford an education. There are two things that I believe we are entitled to when you're born here in the United States and or come from another country legally, immigrate to the United States and become part of the fabric of this nation. You're entitled to an education and you're entitled to health care. I'm not going to allow anybody to be sick and unhealthy and be devastated because they couldn't afford health care. Now, we're in the process of addressing some of the health care. And the Affordable Health Care Act was one of the huge issues that was out there on the stump that I was being sort of targeted with. What do you think of Obamacare? Well, I think the intent was good because I was actually a proponent of universal health care, and that wasn't going to fly. But this was at least something in the right direction to make sure people had insurance, to make sure that people had the ability to get insurance. It's mandatory, yes, but by the same token, it's something that we are entitled to and we have to have. We're all Americans. Don't you think we ought to be working together as Americans? I'm PaulJohnMaisano, and I approve this message.